Hello and welcome, family, to another episode of Beyond Six Figures, the podcast that helps you crack the code and break the mold of old habits and thinking. I'm your host, Yazze, and it is my mission to help you cultivate a mindset that is worth more than millions. Have you ever wondered how to get rid of limiting beliefs? Well, I was featured on Conscious Chats with the host, Jay Win, a new cohort and friend of mine. And we dove into this conversation, one that I've had on this platform before, but one that I love talking about, and I know you guys also enjoy hearing. So, if you have any more questions or just want to hear more about how to address limiting beliefs, change those limiting beliefs, and eradicate them, then tap into today's episode. So, without further ado, because I don't want to hold you long, let's get into today's episode on Conscious Chats with Jay Win.
Thank you for being on the show, Aaron. I like to start off the show with a bit of your personal history, who you are, where you grew up, or what your early years were like.
Okay, yeah, not a problem. So first, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here to have this conversation with you. A little bit about me. My earlier years, I started from Louisiana, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the capital. And I am the oldest of seven. But I was raised mainly with two of my brothers with my mom. So my mom was single parent. So in that I give that backstory because I feel like I am a child of the village. Like I was raised by my uncles and my grandmother and my aunts. My mom is one of 10. So I had a large support system, even though in the immediate household, I didn't really have like father figure in a sense. So I would say that helped me kind of decide who I wanted to be and who I didn't want to be. I had a lot of examples of that. I had a lot of opportunities to get into, the negative side of things. I still have my little bit of trouble just because of the nature of, being a young boy in the city and all those type of things. So I had access to do a lot of damaging things to my life, but actually I was conscious enough to notice like that's not the route I want to go. So due to that, I finished high school, then went on to finish college, and I got into entrepreneurship by the way of a teacher that I had in high school. So when you fast forward to high school, got introduced to entrepreneurship. Two of my teachers had courses at the school that was directly related to what they did outside the school. So one was Mr. Barron, who was a wood shop teacher, and then the other one was Mr. Perlew, who was a screen printing teacher. And so we had graphic arts and we also had wood shop, and I took both. And didn't know really what an entrepreneur was, but I was always driven to do something. I just remember always wanting to be wealthy or always wanted to create something for myself. So one particular moment I remember with Mr. Perlew, because he had the biggest influence on me, was that he used to always say that, look, I don't have to be here, but I choose to be here. And that kind of hit me in a different way because it wasn't that he was being rude or just being cocky, but it was saying that, yo, I value you guys' education so much so that I'm willing to take time out of my day to be here with you guys. And it also made me, raise my ear like, okay, so what you saying you do? Because I thought all teachers were born, they went home and soaked their feet in Epsom salt, and got ready for the next day. But no, this man is running a business, which is now a family business because it's still standing and his kids are running it now. So it's just like, okay, that's a hats off to him. So he inspired me to say, okay, I want to do something for myself. I want to build a business as well. And there is where I started like a fashion brand, a t-shirt company, because I was also inspired by Pharrell at the time. So it was like, I saw what he did and I was like, you know what, I can do it better. So I took my shot at entrepreneurship and ran it for about 5 years. And the story just continues. I continue to take shots at entrepreneurship and the mindsets and things of that nature, and now we're here.
Yeah. What was your entrepreneur journey was like? Was there a lot of like, sometimes being an entrepreneurship is that it takes a lot. Like, because you're the only one who is running like everything, right? So how do you motivate yourself to keep going?
I like to give my motivation probably to my mom and also the things that we just listen to constantly. So she's really big on like gospel music and things of that nature. So we listen to a lot of that, no matter if we wanted to or not. So when you don't own the car, you have to listen to what's in the car. And she played a lot of that when we was growing up. And I think a lot of those songs, it's not that I didn't like them, but they talk a lot about encouraging yourself. One song in particular, which is one that I really love, is called Encourage Yourself. And my mom just spoke over us a lot. So she was a great source of like inspiration, and you can do. She always told us that we were blessed. She always told us that we can do whatever we decided to do. So I relied on that a lot. So from there, I got introduced to just more positive conversations. Also, the music that I listened to, like I said, I'm very versatile in my music selection, but for the most part, I had like Lauryn Hills, I had like the Arrested Development just constantly playing. These are guys who had great rap and musical talents, but they also had great positive messages as well. So I relied on a lot of music. I relied on this is before YouTube. So I did a little bit of reading. I didn't do a ton of reading at the time, but it was a lot of music for me personally that just kind of kept me encouraged and going.
And now you're a host of Beyond Six Figures pod. So what is it about and what has inspired you into creating this podcast?
So for my podcast, I really like to help people. Basically, overall, it's transformation. I talk about transformation. I've always been curious, and since my adulthood, I've been curious about transforming and taking myself to the next level. So I have a lot of those conversations on my platform because I feel like that's always going to be important. There's always someone out there who recognize where they are and then recognize where they want to be, and they're trying to find a way to bridge the gap. So I feel like that's part of my mission, is to help people find ways to bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be and make a change in their lives, because I've seen change firsthand. Like, for example, my uncle, which is like one of the oldest of the 10, he went to jail and because he had a horrible past life. Like he was a victim of the drug age, victim or a consumer of it, whatever you want to call it. But he took it, and then he took his acts out on us. I was old enough to have my bike stolen from him, and I have my dog stolen from him and sold. I've seen him have really bad episodes, but he went to jail, got out of jail, and now he's happily married and been clean ever since. So that hit me upside my head. Was like, oh, people can change. Because to say that I grew up and that was a part of my childhood, and I decided not to take that route, but I've seen change in this man, it showed me that people can change if they choose to change, no matter where their background is, where they come from.
And on your page, you speak a lot about limiting beliefs. So how can each person find out about what their limiting beliefs are, and what are the tips on discovering them and overcoming them?
Great question. Thank you for asking this. So this has been a hot topic for me, this and faith. And when it comes down to limiting beliefs, you have to be curious. You have to start asking yourself, what are the results that I'm getting, and why am I getting these results? And then you start addressing those beliefs. So my thing is, first is awareness. You have to want to be aware, and awareness is also consciousness, right? You are conscious of what's going on. So now we are aware. But one thing that people cannot forget is that being aware is also a responsibility, because we tend to only suffer because we quote unquote know what's the best route, but we decide either not to do it, or we beat ourselves up for not getting the best results. And sometimes it just comes from limiting beliefs. So your limiting belief is usually the blocking between where you want to be and where you are. So asking those questions and being honest about it and having some type of integrity, because you're going to have to answer the tough questions about what is in your way. So if a person is wanting to, and we can use this as the frame of for limiting beliefs. If a person is overweight and they want to start losing weight, right? This is a common, challenge for some people, especially here in America. First thing they may say is that I don't have time. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's that you may be busy, rightfully so. You may be a CEO, you may be whatever it may be, whatever you are. However, you make time for everything else. So you have to challenge that, because if this is a big enough goal, if your health is really important to you, you will make the time. You will find time in your busy schedule. And then you say, okay, well, you know what? I do have time. Now you're challenging that limiting belief, because now you're asking questions that, well, okay, this is important. I want to be here for my grandkids or whatever it may be. I want to be here for my wife or my kids or whatever it is, and say, so what can I do? Where can I find time? Now you're challenging the limiting belief of I don't have time. And then you just continue to trickle that down as and say, okay, I truly do have time. I have 2 hours. All right, 2 hours, you can split that up in about 3 days. So now you have legit amount of time to work out. And that's the first step to challenging your limiting belief, is taking responsibility after you become aware of what that limiting belief is, and you discover it by asking questions. The next step I like to tell people is to abandon that old limiting belief. And the one way you can do that is by saturating your mind with the new material. You saturate your mind with the new with new words of encouragement, new self-talk, because self-talk also directly impacts your imagination and your thinking. So what you're saying is, okay, now I have time. Now you got to get to the gym. So when you get to the gym, you got to start reinforcing yourself, because maybe your next thing is, well, I don't know what workouts to do. We have YouTube, we have all these programs, free programs. Well, what are some workouts that I want? Because now maybe you have an idea of what body you want, what kind of health, how do you want to express your health? Some people want to do it through yoga. Some people want to do it through weightlifting. And both of them are great, but both of them give you two very different results as in how you express your health. So now the person can start challenging that belief, but now they abandon their old thoughts, because now they're putting in new material. They're feeding themselves with new processes and new ideas and new systems. Now you're sparking. Now you got something going, because when you get those low days, and we will, because we're human, you have something better to lean up on, right? Instead of saying, if you have a bad day or not so good day when you're working out, instead of saying, okay, man, you know what, forget this fitness journey, I'm done. Maybe if you've been saturating your mind with some Jim Rohn, with some Les Brown, it's like, no, I can't. I'm hungry. I won't stop until I have it. Maybe it's ET for you. Whatever your speed is, whatever your taste of motivation is, Ed Milet, whoever it is, they have words for you that you can now start repeating to yourself. And all it takes is for you to just imagine that you believed it. Even though if you don't truly believe it just yet, but like, well, what if I did believe that I can do this? Now you're back on track. Now you're saying, okay, because maybe you didn't have that at first. Maybe you went straight to, I'm gonna just chunk the deuces. I'm done with it. I'm walking out the gym. It's over for me, right? But if you listen to people like BJ Fogg, or Dr. BJ Fogg talks about small habits, right? And that also showed up in Atomic Habits. And it's just, so now maybe you're saying, you know what? I'm a different person. This is just a small habit. Okay, I got 30 minutes today, but I 2 minutes. You showed up to the gym for 2 minutes. Cool. Maybe that turns into your 30-minute workout. And maybe that workout continues to turn into 2 days, 3 days, 4, however many you need to get to where you want to go. So abandonment is that second step. And then easy to say is action. No knowledge is power unless it's applied knowledge. Like, knowledge just gets stored if you don't do anything with it, right? And when I say applied, either you can pass it on, because sometimes you can be the conduit for knowledge that some people just can't reach. So you can pass it on by having a conversation with other people. Maybe it's not for you to do, but maybe it's for you to pass on. But then you also have knowledge that you yourself need to apply to in order to get what you want, because knowledge is potential power. You just have to use it. You have to do something with it. So the last step is just simply action. So we're talking awareness, abandonment, and action. So you do those three, and you challenge those limiting beliefs first by asking a question, then be honest, then awareness, action, and all those things take place. Yeah.
In terms of the limiting beliefs, what about the limiting beliefs that are so ingrained in our subconscious mind that what would be the steps that you would recommend for the listeners to start practicing, so that way they can get, not just on a conscious level, get out of from the subconscious level?
You know, because subconsciousness is such a it's such a depth of a conversation. You know, if you listen to Joseph Murphy and all these guys, they talk about subconsciousness, and usually subconsciousness is also impacted by your environment. Now we can start talking about our environment either physically or also just mentally, and I like to stick on the mental environment, right? So I would say if a person is looking to get out of that, first off, because this is good. This is like one of my first times really answering this question when it comes down to subconscious level. I think that's going to, I would say it's in saturating your mind. And when I say saturating your mind, you can start taking it into your full on environment, your social media environment, your music, the books, because if you start saturating your mind with these things, it goes and start impacting your subconscious. We know this. You know, you start being, and then again, awareness. You start being aware of either people who starting to think like you now, or things that that identify with the new you. So if I'm not going to say subconsciously is it's easy, because I feel like that person is still there some way. You're going to have triggers, but in order to get rid of triggers, certain triggers, you can remove yourself by removing yourself from the environment. And you'll start seeing that change as you start thinking. So I would say your environment, start looking at your mental environment, start looking at your social media, your online environment, start asking questions about what you're constantly listening to. Just because you listen to podcasts doesn't make you necessarily the person you want to be, because those podcasts can still have trash, you know, it's still entertainment. So if it's not saying what you want it to say, if it's almost, you have to be ruthless, very ruthless in your choice of who you follow, who you are around, what you listen to, even down to what you eat, because subconsciously is also dealing with your chemical makeup. All these things affect your subconscious mind. All these things play a role in it. So start small, period, right? Let's start small. But I think I would say ultimately that's in saturating your mind in order to really impact your subconscious. So your music, your books, what you watch, all these things that you start taking in within your mental environment, I would say start changing it to the person that you think you want to be. And so one question you can ask is, what would the person, if I was who I wanted to be today, what would he watch? What would he listen to? What would he eat? What would he do? Where would he go? Where would he shop? Who would he have conversations with? And start finding a way to put those things into your environment. It will be difficult because it's not meant to be easy, because maybe you decide to go where he would go, as in where he would shop, right? But you may not be able to afford that just yet. Now you have another issue to deal with your subconscious, because now you have to say, I can, even though you can't at the moment. Or maybe you go where his type of people hang out, but they may not be ready to accept you because you're not yet that person. Can you have the patience to just start up a conversation? First, the courage to start a conversation, but to listen, because nobody knows what you know until you open your mouth. And you can have conversations that ask simple questions. And I can say that because I've been in rooms where I was not the smartest person, but I had good questions. So yeah, I would say start with the saturation and start really transforming your environment, both mentally and physically.
And in your experience, what are some effective ways to continue learning and growing in a person's personal development journey?
Be curious. Simply be curious. Curiosity. It may have killed the cat, but it can definitely change your life, you know. So have some curiosity, strong curiosity, and some courage to finally take steps on your curiosity, and have some discernment to decide what is for you and what isn't for you, because every idea that comes to us is not for us, let's be honest. But it may be that one idea, maybe the one you need to take some action on. But definitely keep track of your ideas. And I use things like Notion, and I also have a journal.
Notion,
I have Yes,
Mm-hmm.
Notion, a great
Mm-hmm.
productivity
Mm-hmm.
app. You can track your habits over a certain span of time, over years, if you set it up properly, but also a journal. And I keep my journals. I go at least about 3 to 5 years back at least.
Oh,
And I try to keep as many as I can, because between moving, damage happens. So I've lost a couple of my journals, but I try to go as far back as I can, because sometimes I have the want to go back and see what was I thinking 3 years ago. This date, 3 years ago. What was I thinking? What were my goals? Are they still the same? Have they changed? Did I even achieve these goals? Am I still having the same, patterns, or am I seeing a pattern that's continuing?
mm.
So I would say definitely get down and journal, get down and find these productivity apps that can kind of help you better track your systems and your habits. So yeah.
So what are the what in terms of tracking the habit,
Mm-hmm.
do you like, you seems to be the person, you track your habits. What are the benefits of tracking our performance as compared to not tracking it?
Well, first off, anything that you want to change needs to be measured. Anything that you
Mm,
want to
yeah.
affect or impact
Mm-hmm.
needs to be measured. And I learned that the hard way. And I would say the benefits of tracking is pattern recognition. We are creatures of habit. Habit is a
Mm-hmm.
pattern built over time. So the primary thing is pattern recognition. And after you become, again, aware of your patterns, it's up to you to decide, to be
Mm-hmm.
discerning if you want to change that pattern or not, because the results are going to tend to either be the same, and they're not the same, they're only going to get better or worse, and you have to decide when that change comes in.
Mm. And in your on your page, you mentioned also about, personal development, history and journey as well. Could you share with the listener what was your journey was like to get to where you are now?
Yeah. So if we want to reach back a little bit, man, I overcame like childhood obesity. I also overcame like, single parenthood in a sense. So those journeys were very difficult as a child, but it was moments where I literally had to rely on myself, and I fought through it. So when it came down to childhood obesity, right? I didn't really lose weight until I didn't become the weight that I am until like high school. And it was like a summer where I was finally done. And that's when I started implementing like, portion control. I started realizing that I can really affect my world, and started to take that route. Then second, the entrepreneur journey, as in starting a clothing company. With that thing, I did it up until college, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
my junior year of college. It ended up not spanning out how I wanted it to, but it taught me a lot of lessons. I was able to
Mm-hmm.
utilize those skills that I learned, because I went door to door, store to store, just to
Whoa.
get my
Yeah.
brand. Yeah, just to get my
Mm-hmm.
brand into some doors. On the local level, we did pretty good. We were known by the people that we wanted to know, that we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to know us, and we were able to get into the stores that we enjoyed. And from that, it showed me that I was a person who can open up these doors for myself. I was a person who can connect with whoever I decided to. My world started to look a lot different. So I overcame not only like my physical self, but I also overcame my mental self in a lot of different ways. And it's so crazy, because that part of me, like wanting to lose weight or even overcoming those things, sometimes we forget how great we are. And it was maybe my last birthday, my little brother made like a little speech, and he mentioned that highlight, as in, I
Oh.
remember when you wanted to do X, Y, and Z, you wanted to lose weight, and every day you were running. I was like, yo, I don't even remember me running every day. I
Oh,
don't remember me
really?
trying to do these things necessarily, but it's like you are impacting those around you more than
Mm.
what you know. So that's how I got to where I am now, because of when I think about what I've done, where I've been, I know that I can turn this new venture, which is my podcast, into something great. So that's
Mm-hmm.
been my plan. I've invested into it in accelerators and stuff of that nature, to figure out how I can turn this into the media platform that I would like to turn it into. And I've been on that road ever since.
In the discussion that we had, the consistency seems to be the pattern that we spoke about. So everything that we do, we have to be consistent, have to keep pushing for, regardless. Like even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day, it's just not breaking that pattern.
Trying your hardest not to break the pattern. Like currently, let me be totally honest, your human will show. You know, you're human, you're gonna human like you're human. And what I'm saying is that even currently, I still battle with consistency on certain things. Now, we are all like the way you do one thing, you can do all things, you know. So I am consistent in other places, but they may not be as impactful of places that I need them to be. Per se, right? But I've heard this take before, and it's saying don't get too caught up in the idea of consistency. Just be consistent. You know, because now the pressure is added as in, oh, I need to do this every day. Well, that may not be the consistency rate that you need to be on or the frequency you need to be on, but it may be once a week, maybe it's twice a week. And sometimes you will miss a day, sometimes you won't, but you need to celebrate those highs and also recognize those lows. And that's the good thing about tracking. If you track, you start to realize, okay, I've been missing some days on the thing that I said I would do. So now you need to adjust and check your priorities. But yes, consistency, because it's pattern, it's habit. It also shows what's important to you. So you are consistent. If you were to take your ideas and be consistent in other places where it may be more impactful on your life, you start realizing that you can make that change. But yes, consistency is key. Consistency is part of it, you know?
And are there, as in all the books and everything that you listed, are there any like recommendations, such as books, courses, or tools that you would suggest for those interested in further their personal development? Or
Yeah. Okay. So first, you just needed to identify, you know, what the development looks like for you. Me, I'm really big on imagination and mindset. So, you know, of course, the Think and Grow Riches are out there, but 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is like one of my Bibles. And then I also love I love small reads because, like I said, I wasn't a big reader, but something that's impactful. So the 5 Rings, it's a book from this Miyamoto Muashi. I'm sorry, I still chop his name up, but he was like the greatest swordsman of his time. He scoured the world and just fought everybody, did whatever, but he became a very conscious and deep man. And he wrote his through archetypes that he have in the book. He describes the principles that he believes it can guide a person to a true and righteous type of life. So I would say that book is also really big. If you want to get in on subconscious, I do like The Power of Your Subconscious Mind. So yeah, you know, it talks deep about it. And then lastly, I again, when I say I'm big on imagining, I have my books like right here. So for those who listening and can't see, I hope you watch the video, but if this is all audio, Neville Goddard's Complete Reader, and he talks a lot about imagination and mindset. And then I would say lastly, if you're a person of faith, whatever your faith is, read that book. If you're a Buddhist, go find the book, you know, the Tao or whatever. If you're Muslim, the Quran. If you're a Christian or whatever you may be, the Bible. Because I do feel like those books, no matter what what umbrella of religion they claim to be under, they are all piece of a bigger puzzle. And I believe if you were to start there with your whatever your traditional faith was or is, no matter Catholic, Protestant, whatever, start there as well and start taking those journeys deeper into those places, and you'll start finding where they connect, and you can start making change there. So I would suggest that.
And how important is faith to you?
Faith is everything. It's a conversation I love to have, because when it comes down to it, your faith is everything. Your faith is literally everything. If you want to have courage, you got to have faith. If you have belief, you got to have faith. all those things still go down to faith, because faith is believing in the things unseen. And as an entrepreneur, as a creator, we tend to be the greatest expression of faith, because what we want is not even here yet.
That's right.
You want this podcast to be the best version of itself, but this didn't
Mm-hmm.
exist until you decided to get on the mic. This the title of it was always there, the word was always there, but it was not, it didn't have content until you yourself decided to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And you had to have faith to say, I know enough, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough to make this, and to make this content happen. And that's what faith is. It's all unseen until you decide to start taking action. And to me, it's a conversation I can go on for days, because I love the idea of it. And I always try to show my faith through my content, show my faith through the things that I read, show my faith through my conversations, because I want everybody to at least have that. And, you know, if you have enemies, you don't let your enemies have more faith than you, because faith is also, it's not reserved for the quote unquote righteous people or good people. There's there are horrible people in this world, but they have strong faith.
Wow.
So don't become a victim of someone else's faith because they believe more than you do. You know, we need more. If you believe yourself to be a righteous person or a good person, you need to have strong faith, and your faith will always be tested. So it's to me, it's just as important as anything about consistency. I think if you have faith, you're going to have consistency. If you have faith, you're going to do what's necessary. You're going to go to the gym if you need to, because you have faith that you will eventually get to where you want to go.
What is your definition of faith? Is it more like believing in something bigger than ourselves, and also is about self-belief, or is it intertwined with everything?
I would say that faith is intertwined with a little bit of everything. Is it bigger than yourself? Yeah, at the same time. But it's in everything. You can put faith and apply faith to everything that's going on in your life. Now, your focus may be on something that's greater than you, and that's okay, but you need faith to get there. And it's just like any other habit. You need to have small faith before you can have large faith. But your small faith, and when I say small faith, it's no absolute size. You know, it says faith of a mustard seed, and faith of a mustard seed shouldn't be confused with necessarily the amount of faith. No, that's the absolute. A mustard seed, that a drop of faith can move mountains. You know, it can make a tide. You know, so that's all I'm trying to say, is that it may seem like you're not there just yet or where you want to be, but even on small matters, you know, maybe small to you but greater in the larger picture, your faith will be tested, you know. So I say that yeah, it's in everything, and it's a part of the larger picture.
Before we wrap up the show, I like to end it with 3 questions. So one is, share me one truth about you that you stand by.
One truth that I stand by is wherever I go, I attract good people.
Oh, amazing. And what does it mean to you to live a conscious lifestyle?
To be aware, and to also have a responsibility. So to be conscious is to be aware, is to be responsible and courageous.
And the final one is, what impact do you want to leave on this world?
Yeah, I like this one. So I don't have a word, but the best way I can describe it is kind of it's with the names that I mentioned earlier, right? The Jim Rohns, the Ed Milet's, so to describe the type of impact is when a person is ready to make a change. I would like for the words that I speak, the life that I lived, for the most part, to be a prime example of what you would want to do, of how you can live, and to have the results that people see for themselves. Because I might not be the person that everybody wants to be, and that's okay. But you know, my cup of tea is not for everybody. But when we talk about the mindset shifts, and we talk about positive thinking, and we talk about uplifting, the same names that I mentioned, you said, yeah, because maybe you yourself leaned on them, on their words to get
Yes.
you through a hard time. I
Mhm.
just want to be a part of that process, so that's the type of impact I want to leave. I want to leave such an impact to where people say I needed a change in my life, and I thought this was a positive change. So I looked to him. I listened to
Mhm.
him, and but also a type of impact that shows that we all need a little grace, because when you
Yeah.
start peeling back that onion, nobody is perfect. So I don't want to live.
Mhm.
I don't want to have the image of a perfect life. I want to have one that's filled with that impacts people to say, look, through the highs and through the lows, through the trash and through the good times, he was still him. He had faith. He had
Mm.
courage. He did the things that he felt was necessary. And look at what he was able to create. And I can create it too.
Oh, amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
There you have it. There it is, family. Another episode of Beyond Six Figures via Conscious Chats. If you want to get more information on Jay and you want to tap into her platform and her podcast, I've left a link in the show notes. So tap in, show her some love. Also, if you want to continue to follow information like this and get more inspiration, motivation, and tips and tricks on how to shift your mindset, then tap into the newsletter that I left the link for in the show notes below by the name of Your Weekly Agreement. This is where I personally cultivate a nice little newsletter telling you what I've stumbled upon, information that has come to me, and things that I'm pondering, reading, and listening to. And all in hopes to start a conversation and inspire you through your transformation. So, until I see you, be great, be vigilant, be curious, be you. Peace.